Hi, I'm Lunel. Keep your birthday free, they said. So I did. I didn't make plans. I didn't even light a candle. I just waited. But that night, I found the photo. They were all there, laughing, celebrating, at a party I was never invited to. And me? I was home, alone, holding a plate I never served, in a dress no one saw. 3 days later, my phone lit up, but not with love. What would you do if the people who raised you chose to erase you? Before we begin, tell me in the comments, have you ever waited for someone who never showed up? It started quietly, just the way Oregon autumns do. The air crisp enough to bite, but not yet cruel. Sunlight slipping gently between thinning leaves. That Monday, as I sipped peppermint tea on my break at school, a text lit up my phone. Keep your birthday free. Just trust me. Verlene. I smiled, cautiously. The messages kept coming throughout the week. My mother called and asked, almost sweetly, "What kind of cake do you like now, dear? Still that lemon one?" I told her yes, heart warming a little. Even Mason, usually too preoccupied with cloud systems or business trips, sent a short but warm message. "Heard Mom and Verlene are planning something. You'll love it. Don't book anything that weekend." I didn't. I turned down a dinner invite from a close friend who'd planned something lovely at a vineyard outside town. I told her, "Rain check. My family's doing something special, I think." She grinned, half skeptical. "Hope it's not a Zoom call with balloons again." "I think they're actually trying this year," I said, and I meant it. I wanted to believe it. Still, the whole thing was vague. No time, no address, just gentle nudges, like they were planning a surprise and didn't want to ruin it. And yet, something itched under my skin. A familiar kind of weight, like the one before a missed school pickup when I was 10, standing by the gate, backpack digging into my shoulders. That feeling hadn't fully left me. That night back home, I opened my wallet to grab some cash for groceries, and saw it again. The birthday card. Yellowed, edges torn, but still intact. My dad's handwriting. Rough, honest. To my Lunel, the only light I ever needed. He was gone now. 5 years. But that card never left my wallet. Not on this day. I pressed it to my lips briefly, then tucked it back between the receipt from the gas station and a loyalty punch card from a coffee shop that had closed down. Friday came, then Saturday, then Sunday, my birthday. I woke early, half smiling already like I was 12 again, took a long shower, chose a soft, forest green sweater and a floral skirt that brushed just below my knees, a shade of lipstick I rarely wore. I made cinnamon tea just the way I liked. Took it out to the porch. The leaves crackled faintly with the wind. I checked my phone. Nothing yet. I waited. Noon passed, then 3 o'clock. I sent a message to Verlene. "Hey, just checking in. Should I be heading somewhere?" Left on red. By 5, the tea was cold. I made another cup. Switched to decaf. My phone buzzed twice, both work group chats. Still nothing from them. I moved to the living room. Lit a candle, tried reading, failed. By the time the sun dipped, painting the horizon with dusty gold, the silence felt like a weight pressing into my collarbones. At 7:12 p.m., I gave up pretending. I opened Instagram, mostly out of boredom. That's when I saw it. I wasn't tagged, at least not intentionally. But a mutual friend, Carla, had posted a photo dump from the weekend and tagged the venue, Maple Glen Country Club. The first image made my stomach drop. A long banquet table draped in white and gold, glasses sparkling, laughter frozen midair, Verlene in the center, a glittery tiara, a sash, fabulous at 38. My mother was beside her, beaming, holding a glass of champagne. Mason was there too, arm around some woman I didn't recognize. Even Uncle Daryl, who hadn't driven up from Sacramento in years, stood in the background, slide after slide, balloons, cake, toasts. No one had mentioned it was her birthday weekend, too. No one had said they were flying Uncle Daryl in. No one had told me anything, except, "Keep your birthday free." I looked through the photos again, this time slower. In the last one, my mother's hand held up a sign. Surprise party for Verlaine. So that's what all the mystery had been. Not a surprise for me. Not even a shared celebration. Just a full redirect. A full erasure. My phone buzzed with a notification. I locked it without reading. Set it down. Leaning back into the couch cushions, I let the quiet settle back in. The candle beside me flickered in its glass. I closed my eyes, then opened them, and whispered, no bitterness, just clarity. So this was never about me. I didn't say it bitterly. I didn't even say it loud. I just let the words rest there, like a final spoon laid on a dinner table no one came to. Then I got up, turned off the living room light, and went to bed without brushing my teeth. The silence in the house that night felt heavier than usual, thick, unmoving. Even my little clock ticked more slowly, like it didn't want to bother me. 2 mornings later, the gray light through the curtains looked like fog inside the room. Oregon has this way of muting the world when it rains or just thinks about raining. That morning was one of those. No storm, no sun, just a sky that didn't know what it wanted. I pulled on my oldest sweatshirt, Dad's actually from his old auto shop days, and shuffled into the kitchen. The tea kettle took forever to boil, or maybe I just stood there too long, staring at the drawer next to the stove. I opened it. Not for anything in particular, just, I don't know, habit maybe. Inside, under a stack of napkins and a warped takeout menu, was a small box. Pale green wrapping, a little smudged now. I blinked at it. I'd forgotten about that. It was the gift I'd wrapped for myself, something I ordered months ago and told myself I'd open on my birthday. Just a small pair of earrings I didn't need, but I thought maybe it'd feel nice to pretend someone remembered. I closed the drawer. Instead, I made tea. While waiting, I reached into the dish rack for a spoon but came up with a mismatched fork. One tine bent, slightly dulled with age. I smiled a little. That fork came from Dad's old cabin. The last time we ate together there, my 28th birthday, he brought apple pie in a brown paper bag. Still warm. I remember he looked around the empty dining table, let out this breath that wasn't quite a sigh, and said, "Don't wait on people who only show up when there's cake." At the time, I laughed, thought he was just being his gruff, wise self. Now? I got it. I sipped the tea and sat by the window. My phone buzzed, but I didn't look. I flipped it face down. I wasn't ready for more curated smiles, balloons, or captions about how family means everything. Eventually, I got up and moved to the living room. Started folding laundry that had sat clean for 3 days. Just as I reached for a towel, my elbow knocked the photo frame off the side table. It hit the ground with a sharp crack. I winced. I picked it up slowly. It was a picture of me, maybe age 6, in overalls, holding a stick of cotton candy nearly twice my size. Dad had taken that photo. I remember he'd said I looked like pure sugar and thunder that day. Now the glass had split diagonally across my face. One jagged line from the corner of my eye to the bottom of my chin. I stared at it longer than I should have. You ever hold something broken and still feel like it's the most honest version of what it ever was? That was me. Right there. Later that afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table again. Same spot, same teacup. The rain had finally started, soft and rhythmless, just enough to remind the world it was still there. I opened my phone, typed slowly. "Hey, I saw the photos. Was I not supposed to come?" Sent. I watched the little status dot for a while. It never changed. Then I turned the phone back down. I tried to distract myself with old emails, school notices, even vacuuming the hallway. Nothing helped. Grief is funny. It doesn't always come as crying. Sometimes it's just the heaviness in your limbs when you fold shirts that don't belong to anyone but you. Just before dinner, my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then picked up. "Lunel?" A soft voice. Familiar, but older. Slower. "Aunt Dorinda?" I blinked, surprised. I hope this isn't a bad time, she said. No. No. She paused, as if listening to my breath. I saw something online about Verlene's party. I didn't even know it was happening, and when I didn't see you in any of the photos, I thought, well, I wanted to check in. My throat tightened. I wasn't invited, I said simply. Oh, honey. It wasn't dramatic. She didn't gasp or demand details. She just said those two words like she was handing me a warm blanket on a cold bench. You know, she continued, your father would have hated what they did. He believed birthdays were sacred, especially yours. I closed my eyes. I miss him, I whispered. I do too. We didn't say much after that, but when we hung up, the house felt different, not brighter, but less cruel. As night fell, I wandered back to the living room. The oak tree outside was swaying in the wind. That tree had been part of every birthday for as long as I could remember. Dad used to hang homemade streamers from its branches. Sometimes they'd fall off within the hour, but he always said, "It's not about how long it lasts, it's about showing up." Now, the branches were bare, just the wind and the memory. I stood at the window and whispered, "I'm done pretending this is normal." Then I turned off the light. That sentence sat with me all morning. It echoed in the back of my mind while I poured coffee I didn't want, folded a sweatshirt that still smelled like last week's rain, and drove the slow route to the museum shop. I parked across from the elm tree that never quite lost all its leaves, like it was clinging to the idea that some things should hold on longer than they're allowed. Inside, the lights were low, and the floor creaked under my boots. I clocked in and gave Mr. Carlton a small wave from behind the register. He was setting out a new display of Oregon-themed puzzles near the entrance. "You're in early," he said kindly, not looking up. "Slow day." "Yeah," I replied, trying to keep my tone steady. "I didn't have anywhere else to be." He smiled gently and gave a soft shrug. "Well, we're always glad to have you." I moved behind the counter and started straightening the gift shop's postcard rack. One corner was drooping where a customer's toddler had yanked it yesterday. I bent it back in place, careful not to break the wire. Everything felt quieter than usual, not just in the shop, but inside me, like my thoughts had packed themselves into a corner and gone silent. I didn't feel angry, not anymore. I just felt dulled, like water that had gone still after a storm. At around 4:15, the door chimed. A couple came in, whispering to each other, pointing at a book on Oregon's ghost towns. I smiled politely. I knew how to be invisible when I needed to be. Mr. Carlton wandered over near closing time and handed me something wrapped in a napkin. "Picked up a little extra from the bakery this morning. You like lemon, right?" I unwrapped it. A single frosted lemon cupcake. The tiniest candle, bent to one side, stuck in the middle. "I didn't forget," he said gently. It nearly undid me. I blinked too fast, pretended to sneeze, and gave a quick chuckle. "You didn't have to." "Birthdays matter," he replied, resting a hand on my shoulder. "Even the quiet ones." I nodded, suddenly needing something to do. I carried the cupcake to the back and sat down at the break table. I didn't eat it. I just stared at the frosting swirl, suddenly remembering that my father used to always say the same thing. The people who remember the small things are the ones worth keeping close. Then my phone buzzed. A text. From Verlene. "Hey, sorry you missed it. We weren't sure you'd be free. It was kind of last minute. Hope it was a restful birthday." I read it once. Then again. It was so casual, so neatly worded, no punctuation out of place, almost like it had been pre-written and just waiting to be sent. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened Instagram. Her page loaded fast. I hadn't looked in a while, but the latest post was just from this morning, a photo of her husband grinning over brunch, captioned, "Sunday fun day with the best." They looked polished, coordinated, like they were playing roles in a lifestyle commercial. I scrolled. 3 weeks back, there it was. A picture of a pastel box with glittering ribbons and cupcakes. "Ordering for the big day, she's gonna love it." That wasn't last minute. That was planned. Carefully. I zoomed in. On the table beside the box was a yellow pad. a handwritten guest list, and right there, clear, underlined in red, no Lunel, not crossed out, not forgotten, excluded. I sat still for a long moment. Something inside my chest cracked, not loudly, but with finality. It didn't feel like pain, not yet. It felt like certainty. I'd spent so long justifying their choices. They're busy. Maybe they thought I couldn't come. Maybe they assumed I'd say no. I'd stacked those excuses like bricks around my heart, but now I saw it for what it was. It wasn't carelessness, it wasn't miscommunication, it was a choice. I deleted the message thread without ceremony. Then, quietly, I opened the email app I hadn't used in months. I found the draft I'd started a while ago. It was addressed to my mother. I'd never finished it. But now I added just one sentence. "You once told me family means showing up. I'm starting to think you never meant me." I hovered for a second, then hit save. Not send, not yet. I stretched out my back and returned to the front just in time to see Mr. Carlton flipping the sign to closed. He caught my eye. "Anything you need before you go?" I shook my head. "Take your time heading out. You've done enough for today." I nodded, whispered thanks, and grabbed my coat from the hook. As I stepped outside, the sky had gone slate gray, almost purplish near the horizon. The wind had picked up, enough to make my hair whip around my face. I tucked it behind my ears, phone still in hand. Another buzz, a new notification, a boomerang video. From Auntie Lee's page this time. I clicked it. It was a short clip of my mother, glass raised, her voice clear and bright. "To the daughter we're proud of!" Everyone in the background cheered. My name wasn't in the caption, but I knew who she meant, and who she didn't. It wasn't even subtle. That video played on a loop in my mind as I turned onto Verlene's street. Her voice still rang in my ears. "To the daughter we're proud of." I didn't need to hear my name not spoken. I'd already read it, crossed out in her own handwriting. The sky was dimming, low clouds hanging heavy like the thoughts pressing into my chest. I parked in front of her beige two-story house with the trimmed hedges and seasonal wreath still clinging to the front door like nothing had changed. My hands stayed wrapped around the wheel longer than necessary. For a second, I questioned whether I should even walk up those steps, but I was tired of second-guessing myself, tired of wondering if I was overreacting. I wanted an answer. I stepped out, the gravel crunching under my shoes. The porch lights flickered on automatically. Verlene's husband must have set them on a timer. It was the kind of practical thing he did. Always calculated, just like the smile Verlene wore when she opened the door a few moments later, dressed in yoga pants and a faded college hoodie like she hadn't just gutted me with silence. "Lunel?" She blinked. "Is everything okay?" I kept my voice calm. "I just need a few minutes. I want to understand why." Her smile faltered, replaced by a practiced look of concern. "Come in, or actually, the kids are running wild inside. Can we just talk here?" She stepped halfway out, letting the storm door shut between us like a thin, polite barrier. I nodded. "Sure." She leaned against the frame, arms crossed like this was going to be casual. "We didn't think you'd be free. It all came together last minute." "I saw the post," I said evenly. 3.5 weeks ago. You wrote my name, and then crossed it off." Verlene stiffened, her lips twitching at the corners like she was trying to find the right flavor of lie to serve. "Oh, that was just a planning list. You know how many drafts we made? You're taking it too personally." I took my phone out and showed her the screen. I had zoomed in earlier to make sure I hadn't imagined it. She could see it clearly now. "No Lunel" in blue ink, her handwriting. "That doesn't mean anything?" she said, shrugging. "You're always looking for a slight. It's exhausting. Honestly, you've been distant for a while. We didn't want to put pressure on you." "Pressure?" I asked. My voice stayed steady, but something behind my eyes burned. All I ever did was try to show up, even when it was hard, even when you made it hard. Verlene tilted her head. "Lunel, let's not make this about you, okay? Mom wanted a peaceful evening. You've always been, well, intense. And emotional." I'm emotional because I'm hurt. She raised an eyebrow. See? That right there. You turn everything into a personal attack. It's not always about you. I stared at her for a moment, feeling something shift inside me. I thought coming here would give me closure, but all it did was confirm what I already knew. I was never part of the picture. They didn't forget me. They removed me. Maybe I made it about me, I said quietly, because for once, I wanted to matter. Verlene scoffed. You matter, just maybe not in the way you think. And with that, she turned. I opened my mouth, but the door closed mid-breath, slicing my words in half. Across the street, old Mr. Breyer was watering his potted ferns. He glanced up when the door slammed. Our eyes met briefly. He gave a sympathetic nod, like he knew something ugly had just taken place, but like always, he said nothing. I stood on that porch for a moment longer, letting the silence settle. Then I turned, walked back to my car. And this time, I didn't cry. I shut the front door behind me, and for the first time in a long while, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt earned, clean. Like the moment after a storm, when the leaves are heavy and the air finally remembers how to breathe. I slipped off my shoes by the door, letting the quiet stretch. Somewhere down the street, wind chimes knocked gently against each other. Overhead, the sky darkened with the weight of a coming rain, the kind that doesn't ask for permission before it arrives. My keys landed on the hallway table with a soft click. I moved through the house slowly, not dragging, but steady. I passed the kitchen without flipping on a single light. The hum of the fridge was the only thing stirring. I was halfway into changing out of my jeans when I heard the soft knock on my office door. Then Jaden's voice, curious, light. Mom? I tugged my cardigan tighter and walked in. He stood near my desk, holding a beat-up shoebox in both hands. The box was taped at the corners, edges worn from time and maybe mice. I hadn't seen that box since. Lord, not since I moved here after Dad passed. Where'd you get that? I asked. It was behind the old wrapping paper bin in the closet. I was looking for scissors. I nodded slowly, motioned to the chair by the desk. Go ahead. Set it down. He did, and I joined him. The lamp on my desk cast a soft gold light between us. Outside, the first drops of rain hit the window, rhythmic and soft. He lifted the lid. Inside were layers of old photographs, yellowed envelopes and cards with my handwriting, my name on them, my memories, sealed and forgotten. I felt the air shift as he pulled out a thick envelope labeled Dad's 70th, from Lunel. Jaden raised an eyebrow. You made this? I did, I said quietly, reaching for it. I gave it to Verlene, asked her to include it with the family gift. I spent days making it. He didn't say anything, just handed it to me. I opened it slowly. My handwriting greeted me like an old friend, uneven in places, dotted with little hearts I'd long since stopped drawing. Inside was a collage, clipped photos, a list of inside jokes Dad used to say. My receipts from that road trip I drove just to fix his garage door. I remembered sitting at my kitchen table, gluing that photo of us fishing in Arkansas. I remembered the way I folded the edges, made sure it looked right, how I'd stayed up past midnight printing the poem he liked from high school. None of it had ever been mentioned again. Jaden flipped through the photos. One caught his eye. Is that me as a baby? He asked. I glanced over and smiled faintly. No, that's your cousin, Verlene's girl. She had surgery back then, couldn't lift her for months, so I took care of her. She always says she did it alone. She didn't, I said, my voice soft but firm. He blinked at me. Why wouldn't they talk about you? The question landed like a stone in water, sending rings out in all directions. I looked down at the picture, me holding that baby, circles under my eyes but smiling, tired but showing up. It wasn't forgetting, it was removing. That scrapbook had been handed over. Verlene had received it, and yet it never made it to Dad's birthday. Not a mention, not a word, just a quiet erasure, like a corner of the photo snipped off. I swallowed the rising burn in my chest. "It's not that I wasn't there," I said. "It's that they wanted to pretend I wasn't." Jaden kept digging. There were receipts from family reunions where I'd paid the deposit, notes in my handwriting organizing Grandma's last Thanksgiving, pictures I'd taken, printed, and mailed, none of which made it into the family albums Verlene posted each year. He paused again, lifting a folded letter. The paper was soft with age, nearly tissue thin. He handed it to me. "Mom, is this your handwriting?" I nodded. "Yeah. That was the letter I wrote for Grandpa when he had his heart scare. I left it on his nightstand at the hospital." "I never saw this in his room." "No," I murmured. "Me neither." There was a long pause. Then Jaden asked, not with pity, but a clarity rare in kids his age, "Were you always the one who was there?" That question, that simple, quiet question cracked something loose inside me. I met his eyes. He wasn't asking for drama. He wasn't fishing for stories. He just wanted truth. I nodded. "Yeah, baby, I was." And I could see it landing for him, not as something to be sad about, but something that made things make sense. Why we didn't go to the big dinners, why his name wasn't in those family posts, why I sometimes paused when someone said cousin like it meant something solid. I sat back in my chair, my fingers brushed the edge of the old scrapbook, the glue lines and ink marks still holding firm. I could feel something forming, not anger exactly, something clearer, like ice finally melting off the windshield so you could see. "They erased me," I said, quieter now. "Not by mistake. They made a choice." Jaden reached over and squeezed my hand. I gave him a small smile. "I think it's time I show them what they tried to bury." He tilted his head. "How?" "I don't know yet," I said. "But maybe the best way isn't showing them first." He looked puzzled. "Then who?" I stood, reaching for the box, and carried it to my desk. "Someone who still believes in stories," I said. "Someone who'll look at this and see what they missed." Outside, the rain picked up, threading down the glass like lines on a page, and maybe the best way is to make sure someone else sees it first. So I wrapped the letters in linen, the photos in glass, and let the world decide if the forgotten had worth. Jaden and I drove into River Grove just as dusk folded itself over the buildings like a worn-out quilt. The rain that had been tapping on our windows earlier turned into a light mist. Downtown buzzed in its quiet way, dim lamps glowing through shop windows, the faint clink of silverware from the bistro 2 doors down, and people walking with their collars pulled up, looking more thoughtful than rushed. The gallery sat nestled between an old tailor's shop and a consignment bookstore, its windows fogged from the warmth inside. A paper sign taped to the door read, "Open mic and found objects night. Come in, come as you are." Camille, the gallery curator, stood just inside the entryway. She was in her late 40s, bright scarf looped carelessly around her neck, coffee in one hand and a clipboard in the other. "Lunel," she said warmly when she saw me. "Glad you came. Showcase whatever calls you, honey. We've got wall space and a table free." I gave her a grateful nod. Jaden carried the canvas tote carefully, holding it the way someone might carry a sleeping kitten. We moved to the far right wall, quiet, away from the main gathering space where the microphone was set up. He laid everything out, just like we'd rehearsed at home. First went the birthday letter I'd written to Dad years ago, still folded perfectly. Its corners yellowed now, but the ink inside hadn't faded. Then came the old Polaroids. Me pushing my niece in a swing, baking a cake with Grandma, hugging my father at a picnic bench. One showed me asleep in the hospital chair during Verlane's gallbladder surgery, baby Amelie in my arms. Jaden looked at each photo like it was sacred. "This one," he said softly, holding up a fabric square, "goes right here." It was the napkin I'd stitched years ago for Dad's birthday dinner. "Roast beef, extra horseradish," it read in cursive. I'd embroidered it in navy thread the night before his big day. Verlene had said it was tacky and tossed it aside. Jaden straightened it with quiet pride. On a simple card, I titled the corner space, "Things That Didn't Matter Until They Were Gone." Then we stepped back. People wandered in slowly. Older couples with coffee mugs from the back counter, college kids with rain-damp jackets, a woman with a paint-streaked bun, and a little girl in matching red boots. They didn't know the photos were mine. That was the point. I wanted the truth to breathe without my face controlling the narrative. These weren't stories wrapped in my name. They were moments, forgotten on purpose, now laid bare on purpose. Camille walked past and paused, lips parting slightly when she saw the collection. "That's personal," she murmured. I didn't say anything. A soft hush took over the back corner as people gathered. One woman, late 60s with a frayed shoulder bag, lingered over the birthday card. "Whoever wrote this," she said to no one, "loved that man." A younger man in jeans and a corduroy blazer pointed at the photo of me babysitting Amelie and whispered, "They kept that hidden?" Another woman wiped under her glasses. "My sister did this to me too. Cut me out of every photo after Mom died, like I'd never been part of it." The little girl touched a frame holding Jaden's baby photo on Grandpa's lap. "Did this really happen?" she asked, wide-eyed. I looked down at her, then knelt. "Yes," I said quietly. "It did." A soft voice spoke from the shadows behind me. "Well, I'll be." I turned slowly. Two figures stood near the hallway entrance, behind a group examining a collage of mixed-media art. Aunt Cheryl. And beside her, my cousin Tasha, both dressed like they'd tried to fade into the walls. Cheryl's eyes flicked between me and the display. Tasha's lips were pressed into a thin line, her hands clutched in front of her like a nervous student. They didn't speak, they didn't move, but they stayed. Jaden noticed too. "You okay, Mom?" I nodded, not looking away from them. "I'm fine." Camille came over just then, her voice low and even. "You've started something here," she said. I didn't answer right away. My eyes returned to the napkin, the photos, the card. For years I'd doubted myself, wondered if maybe I had remembered things wrong, exaggerated my place in the family. But here, strangers saw what I did, strangers felt it. The silence, the omission, the love, and the loss. This wasn't revenge, it was record. I reached into my pocket and took out a tiny pin. A silver thistle, Dad's favorite flower. I'd worn it on my cardigan every Easter growing up. Quiet strength, unwanted but unmoved. I pinned it to the napkin's edge. The night went on. Poems were read. A man played a quiet, off-tune version of Moon River. But our little corner stayed busy. Visitors whispered, sometimes crying, sometimes just standing there, arms folded tight across their chests. No one laughed. No one asked if it was art. They knew what it was. Truth. We were packing up when Jaden handed me a folded note. "It was just sitting there," he said. "On the table." I turned it over. On one side, nothing. Just a plain white card. But on the other, in neat, careful handwriting, were 6 words. "We're sorry. We were wrong." No signature. But they didn't sign it, because guilt wants absolution, not accountability. It wants to be heard, but not held. I stood there in the gallery, the white card pinned like a surrender flag no one had the courage to wave in person. I didn't touch it, didn't even lean closer to guess the handwriting. Whoever left it thought they were brave for showing up, but brave isn't hiding behind paper. That night, the silence followed me home. It was late by the time Jaden and I got back. The buzz of the exhibit still rang in my ears, soft claps, hushed gasps, someone quietly crying behind the postcard wall. I unlocked the apartment, nudged the door open, and Jaden sleepily tugged off his shoes and collapsed onto the couch with a soft thud. I didn't turn on the overhead light, just the warm lamp near the bookshelf. It cast enough glow to see, but not enough to feel fully exposed. Jaden's breathing evened out within minutes, one hand curled under his cheek like he used to sleep when he was little. I sat cross-legged beside him on the floor and reached into the tote bag I'd carried home. Inside, between soft fabric folds, was the unopened birthday card. I don't even remember who gave it to me. Maybe a teacher, maybe a neighbor. It wasn't signed either. Just Happy 10th, Sweet Girl, in looping cursive across a pale pink envelope. I never opened it. Because by the time I found it, tucked in our rusting mailbox 3 days later, I'd already decided there was nothing to celebrate. That morning, my 10th birthday, I'd woken up early, excited like kids are when they still believe in things like balloons and frosting. I'd brushed my hair twice, put on the sparkly shirt Mom said made me look like trouble. I waited in the kitchen for someone, anyone, to notice, but the clock ticked past 8, then 9, then 11. By noon, the only sound was the drip of the leaky sink and the scratch of the broom as I swept crumbs off a floor I didn't make dirty. That night, I'd heard the music. Laughter, high and wild, coming from the backyard. I peeked out through the blinds. My older siblings had thrown themselves a party just because. Mom was dancing, drink in hand. Dad was grilling. Verlene wore my pink scrunchie, the one I'd laid out that morning. And I stood there behind the screen door watching them toast to nothing. No one noticed me. No one asked where I was. The paper plate I'd set out for my cake stayed empty. I went to bed without brushing my teeth. I didn't need to. No one remembered. So I decided to forget too. Back in the present, I finally opened the envelope. It cracked faintly at the corners, the way paper does when it's been waiting too long. Inside was a simple card, with a faded illustration of a sunflower and a line of glitter that had long since dulled. The message was short: "You shine even if no one claps." I folded it shut again. I didn't need applause. I needed the truth. The phone buzzed beside me. A voicemail. No caller ID. I let it play on speaker. "Loon, it's Cheryl. I saw the gallery. That was brave." Her voice was tight. "Your mom, she told us not to invite you. She said you made things tense, that if you came, you'd make it all about you again. We didn't fight her. We just obeyed. I'm sorry." There it was. The thing no one had ever said out loud. They left me out. Because it was easier. Not because I was wrong, not because I was cruel, not because I did something unforgivable, just because I was inconvenient. And that hurt deeper than anger ever could. I didn't respond. I just let the message end and placed the phone face down on the rug. The soft hum of the refrigerator filled the quiet. The city traffic outside had quieted too. Funny. When I was 10, I cried myself to sleep over a missed birthday. At 37, I didn't shed a tear. I just sat still, letting silence do what words never could, wrap around me, hold me steady. At 10, I decided not to expect candles anymore. I lit my own fire. I reached into the drawer under the coffee table, pulled out a small white envelope I'd labeled months ago. Jaden, when he turns 10. Inside were 2 tickets to the planetarium, the same one I begged to go to all those years ago, and a card. I'd written it in advance. No forgotten birthdays, not on my watch. I slid the envelope back into the drawer, tucked under the stack of board games and crayons he still used on weekends. Jaden shifted slightly on the couch, his fingers brushing the edge of the quilt. I looked at him for a long time. Because the past didn't need to be repeated, it just needed a name. And this time, the candles were lit by my own hands, not waiting, not begging, just glowing. 2 weeks later, the sun stretched gently through the tall windows of the community event space, spilling light across the tables we'd set up the night before. Folding chairs lined the perimeter, facing a low platform at the front. There was no red carpet, no expensive florals, just stories, handmade signs, paper lanterns, and enough baked goods to fill a small bakery. The local kids had painted the signs themselves, voices that build and stories worth hearing. I adjusted one final name tag on the sign-in table, Ms. Alta, and stepped back, smoothing down the collar of my navy blouse. Jaden tugged on my sleeve. "Mom, did you put my story near the front of the schedule?" "I sure did," I smiled, tapping the clipboard. "Right after the poetry group. You nervous?" He shook his head, but his thumb kept brushing the hem of his shirt. The room slowly filled. Older folks from down the block, single parents with toddlers on hips, high schoolers with camera phones, volunteers with clipboards. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. No one had to ask to be here. That was the whole point. I floated from station to station, checking on microphone wires, rearranging the snack table, chatting with the moms who'd stayed late to help with decorations. I hadn't planned to speak, but somehow, my name ended up on the program. When I stepped up to welcome everyone, the light caught on a pair of silver earrings I'd borrowed from Ms. Alta, who said they were her bold woman earrings. I glanced at the rows of people. Thank you for showing up. Sometimes that's the bravest part. This event, it's not about showcasing perfection. It's about building something when nobody hands you a blueprint. As I stepped aside, applause rippled softly through the room. Jaden read his piece second, a short story he'd written about a fox who got lost and built his own home from things others had left behind. The audience clapped, and he gave a shy nod before hurrying back to me. I wrapped my arm around his shoulder and held him a little tighter than necessary. It was sometime after the youth band began tuning their guitars that I felt it, an unexpected shift in the room. A pocket of silence near the back. Not dramatic, just still. I turned. He was there. My father. Marty. Not in church clothes, not in anything special. Just a windbreaker zipped halfway and that same slightly hunched posture he always had when unsure of himself. He didn't scan the room. His eyes went straight to Jaden. I watched his lips move, counting silently, then something flickered behind his eyes when he saw the banner with my name printed underneath, Event Director. Our eyes met. I didn't flinch, didn't wave, didn't look away. He stood like a man who'd walked into the wrong room, like someone expecting a children's recital and finding out the whole evening was orchestrated by the daughter he hadn't spoken to in years. He didn't clap when the poetry group finished, didn't move forward, just stood. I turned back to the event, motioned to the next speaker, and smiled at a woman nervously holding her notes. "You're up, Ellie. You've got this." And that was it. No drama, no speeches, no, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." Just the air between us holding all the weight of what never got said. Later, as we handed out juice boxes and packed away the chairs, Ms. Alta approached me with a small bag of hand-knit bookmarks and an approving nod. "I watched you today," she said gently. "You didn't ask for a seat. You built the table." I smiled. A little breath caught in my throat. "Thank you." You've been seen. You've been heard. Not by everyone who should have, but by the right ones. I felt her hand squeeze mine. That warmth stayed with me as Jaden ran over and pressed a folded program into my hand. "Ms. Alta said to give you this. She wrote something on the back." I turned it over, but something else caught my eye first. My father, still near the back, still watching. He hadn't left. Not yet. He looked like he might speak, but his mouth never opened, just a slow blink, a sag of the shoulders. Maybe he came for a poem, maybe he stayed for a reason he couldn't name, but the one thing he didn't know was what I left for him on the last page of the program. His eyes scanned the back. One line in cursive, "This seat was once for you. You never claimed it." I didn't turn to look after that. Didn't need to. He didn't walk up, didn't say a word, just stood there like a man who showed up for someone else and realized the person he came to ignore was the one holding the mic. I let the applause of the room wash over whatever silence he carried. Then I went home. That morning, the sunlight poured through my kitchen window like a gentle reminder I'd made it past another storm. The apartment was quiet, soft with the scent of warm toast and strawberry jam. Jaden sat across from me in his favorite hoodie, legs swinging beneath the chair, a smear of jelly on his cheek. The community showcase was still fresh in our hearts, like we'd tucked it into our pockets and brought it home. He tapped his spoon against his cereal bowl and asked, "Mom, why didn't you tell Grandpa I was your son?" I didn't answer right away. I poured myself some coffee, took a slow sip, then leaned my elbows on the table. He deserved the truth. plain and without dressing. Because he only wanted to hear it when it made him look good, I said, meeting his eyes. Jaden looked down, then back up. But I'm not a secret. No, baby, you're my greatest truth, but not everyone deserves to know it. He nodded like he understood more than he should for his age. Then he got up to feed the fish, humming the same little tune he'd read during his story at the event. The voicemail came that evening, 3 days after the event. I saw the name before I heard the voice. Marty. His words crackled through the speaker like they were crawling out from the bottom of his throat. I didn't know. I'm not proud of that. You did something real, with people who don't just stand around. There was a pause, then the click of him setting the phone down before the line went dead. I listened once, just once. Then I deleted it. No need to rewind or study tone. The apology came late, and like most things from him wasn't about me. It was about him not knowing, about how he felt. After dinner, I cleared the dishes, dried my hands, and walked over to the side drawer in the living room. I hadn't touched it in a while. I opened it gently, like I was peeling back a wound to see if it had scarred or was still bleeding. Inside, folded between old greeting cards and yellowing school certificates, was the photo. The one from my 10th birthday. The one my sister had posted that awful comment under. The one Dad once said, "Just didn't turn out right." I looked at it closely now. My young face was bright, eager, in a dress I'd picked myself. But the people around me? They weren't smiling. Not really, they were just there. I turned the photo over. A crease down the middle. A tear in the corner. The ghosts of forced celebration. And I knew. That frame on the mantel, it had stayed empty for too long. Not because I had no memories, but because I was waiting for the wrong ones to matter. So I reached for the new print, the one Ms. Alta gave me after the showcase. Jaden standing at the microphone, a little nervous but proud. Me, behind him, smiling like I'd just stepped into sunlight after years underground. In the background were faces that chose to show up, who weren't there because they had to be, but because they wanted to be. I slid the photo into a fresh wooden frame. Simple, honest, no gold leaf, no fake shimmer, just clean edges and a clear view. I walked it to the mantel, where the old one used to sit. I stood there a moment, letting the weight of it land softly. There used to be 5 faces in that photo. Now, just 2. That's enough. Because this one was taken with love in the room. I sat down on the couch, the day folding itself around me. Outside, wind chimes danced gently. Jaden was already curled up with his comic book on the floor. I glanced one more time at the photo. They said to keep my birthday free, I whispered to myself. They were right. It was the day I was freed. Have you ever kept waiting for someone, only to realize you were the gift all along? Tell me, would you have sent the photo back, or kept it for yourself? I read every comment.